new book out today. Two Berkeley economics professors lay out the case for why there should be a higher tax on the richest Americans. Joining us now, Gabriel Zucman. He helped design Senator Warren's tax plan as a co-author of Triumph of Injustice, How the Rich Dodge Tax. We've already seen all this. Gabriel, welcome. There was an article that was posted, actually it was on the op-ed pages of the New York Times. And in this case, there was what normally would happen, there'd be a working paper that you would, a research paper that would lay out how you arrived at some of these numbers, and you didn't do that. You went, I'm wondering why you went straight to an opinion section where people couldn't figure out how you did the numbers. And I'm also wondering how you got some of the numbers, because you do 2018, and those numbers aren't even available yet from the IRS. So there's got to be a lot of assumptions that go into your calculations, which could make them wrong, basically.
Well, yeah, first, thanks so much for having me. And second, all the data, all the programs, all the computer code, all the technical appendices of our work are online
now
on taxjusticenow.org. And everything is explained in the book. And all of this is based on the research that we've developed, my co-author Emmanuel Saez and I, over the last 2 decades. So it's based on a lot of rigorous scientific research, but no data series is definitive.
Gabriel,
these are the best estimates we think,
but the CBO has,
they could be improved.
The CBO has 40 years of a methodology of how to do this, and it differs drastically from the conclusions that you come to.
The specificity of our approach is that we distribute 100% of total tax revenue in the U.S., federal, state, and local. The CBO only looks at federal taxes.
Right.
So that's specific. And when we do that, what we find is that, total tax revenue in the U.S., 28% of national income, and today each income group pays around 28% of their income in taxes, except billionaires who pay 20%.
There's some regressivity in the state taxes, but if just in federal taxes, you're talking about the lowest quintile is at 1.7% of federal taxes. Now, in state taxes, it's 11.7 versus 8% for the higher quintiles. There's no way that makes it. You get from 1.7% to 25% taxes paid by the lowest quintile. That's mathematically impossible.
Again, we can have a methodological debate, but you need to realize that the working class pay a lot in sales taxes, consumption taxes, payroll taxes.
What about the earned income tax credit?
Refund when tax time comes.
Did you have the earned income? Did you just back that out? And did you back that out?
I know that. What I'm saying is that the reality of American society is that poor, cash-constrained people pay a lot of taxes throughout the year.
Andrew, one of the ways we deal with this to make it more progressive is with the earned income tax credit. That's a huge. That makes it much more progressive, much less regressive, and you back that out entirely, which makes people think you're trying to skew the numbers to show a certain result. Am I right about is the earned income tax credit? You're pointing again. Is the earned income tax credit backed out of these calculations?
What we're doing is we're distributing 100% of tax revenue and 100% of government spending as well.
So you don't include the earned income tax credit?
We do both. What you don't want to do is just to subtract some transfers from taxes and not others. We're looking at a comprehensive perspective, all taxes and all government spending. That's the specificity of our approach, okay?
Can we talk more broadly about the issue of taxing the wealthy? Do you think there should be a maximum income or a maximum wealth in America?
That idea has a long history, in U.S. society. You have to realize that the United States invented sharply progressive income and wealth taxation, with top marginal income tax rates of more than 90% in the post-World War II decades, top estate tax rates of close to 80%, from 1930s to 1980s. That's a U.S. invention. That's not a European invention. No continental European country ever had such top marginal income tax rates.
What's your personal answer to that question?
No, the answer is extreme
Would you go back
wealth.
to that?
What we explain in the book is, extreme wealth concentration is corrosive.
Okay.
And so
what's the upper limit then for you?
That's not something for economists to decide.
Let me ask you this,
then let me ask you a separate question, if you'd indulge me for a second. Because you've helped design effectively the Elizabeth Warren plan, and there's lots of questions about how you could effectuate a plan like that. The biggest issue, of course, is how are people not going, or how is that kind of plan not going to be gamed by people? And effectively, how would you, on an annual basis, effectively value each individual's total net worth at any time. By the way, I don't know what you would do with Michael Jordan's brand on any given year, or frankly Donald Trump's brand, given some of the valuations he's. But I mean, how you would actually do that?
So 70–80% of the wealth of the top 0.1% is in listed securities, listed equities, bonds, mutual fund shares. 20% is in unlisted equities. In that case, we have a solution. We are saying, first, the IRS should come up with the best valuation possible. And if the taxpayers disagree, they can pay in kind with shares. So if the wealth tax rate is 3%, they give 3% of their shares to the IRS.
The government
and then
would
the IRS sells the shares on a market and creates the market that's missing.
See, this was an explosive proposal in the book I don't think people have focused on yet. You're saying that the government would become a part owner of these private companies where there's a disagreement and then try to resell those shares on some kind of auction market.
So the point is not for the government to own shares, it's to resell immediately, but to create the market value that's missing. That's, a service that the IRS could
And you find that the top optimal rate for taxing the very rich is 60%, 75%? On the Laffer curve, where do you find the optimal rate for taxing the rich?
The revenue maximizing tax rate for the top 1% is at least 60% in terms of average effective tax rate. But in reality, it depends on enforcement. Governments can choose to make taxes fail, and we've seen a lot of that. Or they can choose to make taxes work.
What would you do with philanthropy? What would you do with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett?
No, that's a good question. That's a debate that to have. We don't talk a lot about that in the book. You could have a wealth tax, for foundations, especially for foundations that are controlled by living individuals, by their founders, to prevent tax avoidance, people moving money to their foundations. That's sometimes to be discussed.
To avoid taxes.
No, people giving money away, you have to pay, gift taxes, and if you give to a
Gabriel,
charity,
the methodology itself is there's the CBOE is not going to, or the CBO is not going to come to this conclusion. Larry Summers is not going to come to it. Jason Furman.
Big hour ahead on Squawk Box.